What do you see as the barriers to recovery, or perhaps the circumstances that might lead a priest, clergy, Catholic leader, someone who's active in their parish to seeking recovery, other than just the natural kind of shame or fear of being found out?
Yeah, so I think that there's a fear of being found out, and again, I want to try to say things with reverence for wherever somebody might find themselves. But there can be a fear of being found out. There can also be like a fear of scandal. Like I'm afraid that the faith of my people isn't strong enough to sustain them if they find out that I'm a human.
Mm.
Or a fear of somehow degrading the power of the church by needing to seek help outside of it.
Mm.
Um, like somehow, if I need to go to a 12-step fellowship, and that means there's something missing in what I claim to be the fullness of the truth. And I think I've probably addressed this in various ways that it doesn't mean there's something missing. It's just that we don't really do that very well. We're supposed to do it, but I don't know that we do it very well. And so there can be a fear of that. I mean, I don't like going to meetings with people that I might be counseling at the time. And I know different like counselors who have this issue too. And so I know a therapist who tells people, you need to go to meetings. If you go to this particular meeting, you're fired as my client
Mm.
because that's my meeting. And if you show up, then we're two people in a meeting and I'm not your therapist anymore. So he has a pretty strict boundary like that. I know somebody else who has, they might just like go to a meeting and one of their clients is in the meeting and they say, okay, like while we're in this meeting for this 60 minutes, we're just two people in a meeting. When we leave here, I'm your therapist again. And some people can navigate those kinds of boundaries and some people can't very well. Like I've had relationships with spiritual directees like that, where like sometimes we'll get together, like, and there's a friendship there, but I've had to be very strict about like, you don't ask me like spiritual direction questions, especially that you're really sensitive about when we're sitting around the dinner table. And because we can't float in and out of kind of sarcastic banter and something that's really like serious and a sensitive place in your life. And so we only do that in my office. And some people can hold that and some people can't. So it's just trying to find that place, which is why the gift of post-COVID recovery world is that there's so many options for online meetings or phone meetings that you can almost like find a meeting where nobody knows you and you don't have to go to the meeting in your town. Though I do know, like I know a priest who goes to meetings and the meetings, a lot of the population in the meeting are his parishioners because he keeps referring people to meetings.
Hmm.
And he's kind of okay with that, actually. And what he discovers is that people actually respect him more because they see him working on his own stuff.
Yeah.
And it's not the end of the world that he thought it would be, that people know that he's in recovery. I always think it's better for people to know you're in recovery and go to meetings than for them to find you when you're acting out in your addiction.
Yeah. You talk about shame and scandal. Much more likely to
Hmm.
happen if we're not caring for ourselves or
Right.
tending to our wounds. Yet, oftentimes, the fear, the self-fulfilling prophecy. I'm not sure if that's the right term, but the juxtaposition of us not going to meetings because we're afraid of fear and scandal keeps us out of meetings, which then makes it more likely to produce and create scandal and shame.
Hmm.
There is such an importance of modeling vulnerability and healing and leadership that if we're unwilling to do it ourselves, but we're asking other people to do so, we're just putting on a burden for someone else that we're not willing to accept ourselves. Our Lord says something about this. Even just thinking earlier, I was thinking about myself as a therapist, and oftentimes how different it is for a therapist to be speaking, or my experiences as a therapist, but as a priest or a spiritual director or someone who's providing some pastoral care in the church. This the difference between speaking to a therapist and a sponsor is that for the most part, a sponsor, if they're asking you to do something or they're making a suggestion to do something, it's because they're probably doing it themselves or have done it themselves in a moment that's similar to where you're at. A therapist may, certainly a good therapist is continuing to do their own work, is seeing a therapist themselves, or
Right.
also going into some of those interior places that might be challenging to look at, but not all. Some might be speaking on more based on theory than they are actually practical experience.
Hmm.
And when we're just speaking in terms of theory and what probably will work really well for you, rather than speaking from a place of experience and this is what has worked or is working for me. And just the modeling of vulnerability and the importance of showing that we are tending to our emotional, spiritual, physical, cognitive needs ourselves is so valuable. You've spoken about this yourself. It's about how, when you are kind of even delivering um, a sermon on
Mm-hmm.
kind of from like a Al-Anon perspective or a recovery perspective of how people oftentimes come up to you and say, Father, that was really, really wise, really good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine it's a little bit different from when you're just speaking from a place of theory or something of the sorts.
Yeah, and I think that applies like across the board, that wherever, again, like whatever leadership position that we have, when we're sharing with somebody else what our Lord is doing in our life in a way that's really borne fruit, and we can do that in a way that's authentic, and it's just more powerful that way. Paul VI said that the church listens to witnesses more than teachers.
Mm.
And so that's what we need, is to give witness to what our Lord's done and the fruit that it's borne in our life. And there's just a lot of times when we sort of give advice, or we are preaching on something, and there's no testimony that it works. And that's, again, it's always kind of my standard question is, like, did that work for you? Or like, how's that going for you? We were talking about slogans earlier, and I don't know if that counts as a slogan, but it's definitely something that people say a lot.